everyone. Thanks for joining me this week. We are talking about friendships. We're going to talk about unhealthy friendships, toxic friendships, codependent friendships, friendships that have just kind of reached that expiration date. This is something that was very highly requested by you guys. You guys wanted more information on this topic, and so here we go. I personally believe that sometimes it's easier to end a romantic relationship with either a boyfriend or girlfriend or a romantic partner than it is to end a friendship sometimes. And there's a variety of reasons for this. Number one, you could have shared friends. Number two, you could, still have to see each other fairly often. This person could really be all you have in terms of friends. And so you've really just been keeping this relationship going kind of like by default. There's always a fear of confrontation sometimes that people have, a fear of like hurting this person's feelings by saying that you really don't want to spend time with this person anymore. Then, of course, there's the guilt that you put on yourself for even feeling that way. Maybe there was just like this perception that you were going to stay friends forever. And now that this relationship has changed, or you've changed, or they've changed, or it doesn't really matter, just that two people are kind of growing apart, there's some feelings, some uncomfortable feelings that you're probably going through that you don't know how to deal with. I think a lot of relationships sometimes can get very codependent. You can have codependent relationships with people that don't have to be your romantic partners. And if you're codependent on them or they're codependent on you, or the both of you are in a codependent relationship, then once again, you're kind of just like continuing like this dysfunctional cycle, and it's hard to get off this ride of codependency that's going on between the two of you. And this is where you start hitting this like pain threshold where you're like, okay, I actually don't feel good when I'm around this person. Like, I don't even enjoy really spending time with them anymore. The things that we used to laugh about, agree about, vibe on, it doesn't feel the same anymore. And probably it's because you're growing, you're changing, and doesn't mean that the other person isn't. They are as well, but the two of you are just growing apart. A lot of times, especially when you're dealing with long-term relationships, we just assume that people are going to stay in our life forever. And obviously we can't make that assumption, and we have to be able to decide whether or not someone is actually bringing value into our lives and that this relationship is growing with us. And when it's not, when you're dealing with a long-term relationship or friendship, it's definitely harder to break the chain. It's harder to detach from that person. It's harder to kind of accept that this relationship has to end, especially when nothing catastrophic has actually happened. You kind of just get to this point where either the relationship just becomes too unhealthy, or you just don't feel comfortable anymore being around this person. It's such an uncomfortable feeling, and you don't feel good when you leave this person. And when that starts to happen enough times where there's a significant pattern that you're seeing, this is when you kind of stop and question whether or not this person should actually be in your life. Sometimes what we have to do is really take a step back and ask ourselves important questions. Do the two of you, for the most part, look at life in the same way? Are you having fun around this person? Are you comfortable around this person? Do you feel like over the years maybe this person started to judge you or shame you or taking advantage of you? Maybe they are narcissistic. Maybe you're just severely codependent. Maybe this is just a comfort thing and it's something that you've always known, and now you don't need that comfort anymore in that way. Another huge question to always ask yourself with any relationship is, do you actually respect this person? If you met them today, would you choose to be friends with them? That's a huge question to ask yourself, again, with friendships or even romantic partners, because at the end of the day, your romantic partner is your friend. The only difference is, the intimacy that you have with your romantic partner, but the friendship is really what we're always the most concerned about. Do you respect them? Do they respect you? And if you didn't know them and you met them today, would you choose to be friends with them? You could also be a person that is just in a relationship with someone who is manipulative or takes advantage of you, and you've kind of just always been the gullible, go the flow, people pleaser, codependent, no boundaries type of a person. And you're probably hitting a pain threshold where that is no longer working for you. And you're starting to kind of like really feel like you're being taken advantage of. Like most codependents, they don't really stop and ask themselves, is this person good for me? Is this relationship good for me? Is this relationship adding and giving me something, or is it just constantly draining me? The first thing I will say is you definitely can't go off of the past. You can't go off of how long you've known a person. And again, this is true for romantic relationships. We can't go off of, I've been with this person for this long. We can't go off of, I've known them, pretty much my whole life. We just can't we can't be that sentimental about relationships, because what ends up happening is the sentiment is really the emotion that you're feeling, and the emotion isn't logical. So it's the logical part of our brains that are going to be able to decide whether or not something's actually good for us. Our emotions are never supposed to be in charge of that. So none of this has to do with the fact that you've known this person for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. It has nothing to do with at one time you were very close and you very much did get along. And this is definitely not about all the things that they have once done for you. Because if you stay stuck on those 3 things, you're just letting the past and the sentiment and the guilt that you feel dictate whether or not this person stays in your life. And you're not really making healthy choices that are right for you. You're making fear-based decisions that you're just basing on the emotions and how you feel. This really has nothing to do with any of those things other than what is best for you. What is your well-being? I think we have to accept sometimes that everything does end at a point. And obviously, we don't want friendships to have to end, whether they're friendships or romantic relationships. Obviously, we want it to be that person. We want to stay in our comfort zone, but we all will hit a point where we just can't. We have to accept that this is really about something ending that's no longer giving me what it once did. And the truth is, if you're dealing with a relationship that either was always unhealthy, or maybe you were always severely codependent, or whatever it is, but chances are, if a relationship now is unhealthy, it probably always was healthy. You just couldn't see it. So I want you to ask yourself, do you honestly feel good around this person? Chances are, if you're watching this video, the answer is going to be no. So then you want to start to kind of uncover, what are really the fears and the limiting beliefs, the assumptions? What are the things that are going on inside of you that would even keep this train going? Because this is really where you're putting the fears ahead of your own well-being, or you're putting how you perceive this person might feel, again, before your own well-being. If you're watching this and you've dove into self-development and you're ready to work on yourself, then this is now the phase of your life where you are putting you first. This goes above relationships, this goes above jobs, this goes about anything that is in your life that does not make you feel good. And for whatever the reasons are, call it a spiritual awakening, call it who knows, quite frankly, you have hit this point where you have to put you first. You are no longer anyone's emotional punching bag. You are no longer going to be manipulated. You are no longer going to be taken advantage of. You are no longer going to be around people that are not drama-free. And really, this is not about me giving you a list of all kinds of toxic traits of a person. If you're watching this, then chances are there's something that's going on in this relationship, something with this person that you deem toxic. You don't need anyone's validation that what you're feeling doesn't feel good and it's not serving you anymore. This is really about, how do I detach? How do I either break off a relationship? How do I start creating better boundaries? So there's only really 2 options for this, and they're both gonna be you getting out of your comfort zone. Option 1 is that you're going to be open and honest with how you feel. This is going to sound something like, I know we've been friends for a while, but I have to admit lately I just have not been feeling great after I leave, a day with you or an interaction with you. This type of conversation usually happens when there definitely is some kind of tension or thing that has been going on between the 2 of you that is undeniable. Things are definitely off between the 2 of you. Things are definitely not what they used to be, and it's obvious. So this is when that type of conversation would happen. The second option that you have is to start distancing yourself from this person. Now, in the beginning, you might be able to get away with not having to communicate anything to this person, but at a certain point, they are 100% going to start questioning what's going on. Now, when they start to ask the question, what's going on, this is where you are going to have to get out of your comfort zone and really kind of like go back to step one, where you have open and honest conversations. Now, if you're dealing with someone who's narcissistic, you're not going to be able to blatantly be honest. You're going to have to, I mean, you very well could, don't get me wrong, but that person's not going to be receptive. They can't see the elephant in the room that's probably been going on in your relationship probably for a really long time. So when you bring this news or this information to the forefront, they're going to be very shocked. They might get defensive. They might try to throw it back at you. They might, just flip it and make you the problem. And that's just kind of like their defense mechanism. And the reality is that no matter what option you take, this is going to cause you to put yourself first. And when you put yourself first, you're going to get uncomfortable because it's not something that you've done for most of your life. And when it hasn't been something that you've done for most of your life and you're not comfortable with uncomfortableness and pushing yourself out of that zone of just doing what you've always done, which is just either ignore, suppress, or reject how you feel, you're going to have to do something different. And this is really your opportunity for growth. This is really your opportunity to all the videos and podcasts and articles that you're reading, everything that you've been working on or that you are working on. This is actually your opportunity to slow down and do something different than you've done before. This is just a matter of possibly being in a relationship with someone where you yourself have just had poor boundaries and you really want to work on the boundaries to possibly still have this person in your life, then by all means, go for it. I do think that boundaries are something that when you're working on them, you have to be very attuned as to what you think, how you feel, what works best for you, but it does require you to be able to verbally communicate what works for you, what doesn't work for you, being able to withstand any guilt, shame, defense mechanism that they want to throw at you, you being able to like withstand that and stick to your guns on what works for you, what is the best for you. If you're here, then chances are you're in a relationship where it doesn't feel good. And the only way for you to feel good again is for you to handle the situation however you deem best. And don't judge yourself for whatever route that you do decide to take. So you guys, I hope you have enjoyed this video. I will link all of my courses, coaching, everything down below. If you guys have any questions, comment down below the next video topic that you would like to see from me, and I will definitely put it on the list and work on it for you guys. I hope you guys are well, and I will see you in the next video.